It's time for another edition of Game Day TV. I'm Jerry Young along with legendary coach Max Howell. We're going to wrap up what happened this past week in the SEC and some of the games coming up. But Max, let's just start by talking about what happened this past weekend. You think some coaches have actually coached their way off the hot seat?
I think so. There were a couple when we started the show 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, or whatever the number is, that really came in here with the aspirations of trying to be better. But you never know, Jerry. You never know week to week. The psychological edge is really portrayed by some. Some can't quite get there. But there's one team in this conference that actually started in, and I didn't think he had a chance to win after I looked at his schedule. They literally have played their way in. We certainly will talk about that, even though they lost the game Saturday night, but they played extremely well.
Well, we're also going to get Max to demolition a few teams. He's going to put his hard hat on as he does every week as we talk about some teams that need some dismantling still. I'll have the high school report again this week. And Max, I want to tell you, we got a new rating system that we're going to start using here on Game Day TV, which is the Wilson rating system. Now, a lot of you know that the top 10 in each classification in high school is based off the Alabama Sports Writers Association. I don't get to do that because I'm not a sports writer, I'm a broadcaster. So I've been doing a little research. There are other ways to determine who's 1, who's 2, who's 3. And then one of those ways out there is the Wilson rating. We're going to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to give you what they say their top 10 is in high school. We got some good recruits. Some recruits had some big games this week.
Well, you know, again, I know you cover those games and have for years at the high school level, and you kind of get into that play-by-play and watching the team work. See, I covered them for years, Jerry, but I was out there looking for one guy. Right. I was looking for that wide receiver that might be 6'4" and 210 and run a 4.4 that could move on to the college level, that could really make a difference in that. So I've jumped along on your bandwagon to follow those high school kids, those high school teams. I can't wait till the season gets into the playoff time.
Well, and this year I've talked about 7A a lot, but there's a lot of great teams at the top of 7A, all of which can lay claims to being number 1 in the state. We'll talk about those as well today. I'll also get Max to review the top games coming up in the SEC. Got some big games coming up there as well this week.
Well, it is, and you know, you go back and look, and some of these teams that have improved this past week, I'll be really anxious to see if they can continue on. Because again, sometimes you can hit a bump in the road. You may jump that ditch, but if you don't keep your foot on the throttle, you may roll back in it. I'll be interested to watch that coming up on this Saturday.
Of course, Max is going to have his legendary and famous What's for Supper. You got the menu ready?
I got it ready. I got that in my head. But Jerry, I come over to your house every weekend because we do our planning on a Sunday afternoon before we come to the studio. You cooked a meal last night that I'm taking that menu and that recipe back with me. Guys, it was a cabbage dish that I have some German friends in Mississippi that I eat with on a regular basis. They'll love it.
We went to Vernon, Alabama this week. We're going to tell you about that as well. We'll be back for the first segment right here on Game Day TV.
At Central State Bank, we are more than your local branch. Our digital lobby offers you the same great service you receive at our local offices, all from the convenience of your phone or home. Use mobile deposit, online banking, mobile wallet, and more. It is easy, convenient, and secure. Come by and see your personal banker or find out more at centralstatebank.com. This is just another way Central State Bank is large enough to serve you and small enough to know you.
Sundown Tint is the only company in Central Alabama authorized to sell Autobond Super Optics nanotechnology window tint film. We are the best because we sell the best. With Hooper Optic, you get the first patented nano-ceramic window film with 3 times more infrared rejection. It's 25 times more durable than competing films and 13 degrees cooler. This cutting-edge technology provides remarkable performance and cool European styling, and you can only get it at Sundown Tint in Hoover. For the best window film installed by the best team, Sundown is the place to go.
The unexpected. The inevitable. The inconvenient. Life can be difficult. Make it a little easier. Alpha Insurance.
Thank you. I never in a million years thought that I would ever have to utilize the Ronald McDonald House. It meant the world that I was able to stay so close to her, and she was never alone. Thank you from the Chepkauskas family.
You can travel all over and you won't find another town with our name or our frame of mind. So much to do, so much to see. It comes down to this, it's easy to see. There's just one in the world, positively. Tuscaloosa, the one and only.
All right, we're going to make Max put his hard hat on here in just a minute as we've been talking a little recruiting during the commercial break and how Max used to recruit, but very interesting things. And, you know, I remember, I want to go to this first. I remember one time you told me that Deion Sanders had such strong ankles that he could plant that foot, and when he turned, he'd actually blow out the cleat.
I've seen the shoes tear up on him. He was, no doubt. The guy, he was the most perfectly genetic description of a guy you could have. 6'1.5", 195 pounds, run a 4.2. Now you find somebody he had about a 46-inch vertical on top of that. The guy could do it all. So that was kind of my guide when I was out looking for players.
Yeah, you know, I remember I was on the sidelines this past week and I saw a player in front of me, a wideout, come in, plant his foot and turn. They always think about you saying that to know that kids have that kind of torque.
That's right.
That they can turn. Okay, well, I don't know what started that conversation. Hope you enjoyed it, but we're going to go right on into demolition, Max. We're going to start with Vandy.
Well, you know, Coach Mason has got his work cut out for him, to say the least. I mean, Georgia just blows him away. You know, Vanderbilt is, I hate to say this, is kind of falling back. James Franklin had them up to a level, and Derek Mason comes in from Stanford last year, has them rolling pretty good. Can't quite match that at 9 wins, but has an outstanding year. Comes back this year with all kind of expectations. What did they fall flat on their face? I mean, they've been beat like they were drug up and down the road in Athens, Georgia this past weekend, really beyond my expectation. I know Georgia's gotten a lot better, but Vanderbilt did. Now, the other side of that is they do have a chance to rehab a little bit because they go to Oxford, Mississippi this week. Right. And by the way, the other team that's on our demolition list is Ole Miss because they fell completely apart down at Auburn this past weekend. But you know, Vanderbilt, great institution. But I know I've read and heard, well, you know, why don't Vanderbilt just get out of the Southeast? Guys, we don't need them out. They keep the GPA up for the average of the schools in this league. And I'm being a little facetious. I hope you guys understand. But the fact is, they do have a great institution, and I told you the story about what some universities call the players at Vanderbilt later in life. They call them boss.
Boss, that's right.
They own the business in which they work for. But
that's right.
My bottom line is on Vanderbilt, they're struggling week in and week out. They've had a couple of injuries. They've got a chance. They go to Oxford this weekend. They got a chance when they play Ole Miss.
Well, James Franklin, once he left Vanderbilt, he had them expectations up, and I think Mason's done a pretty good job, but they just can't ever seem to close the deal.
And the deal is you can't recruit enough athletes at that level to compete in the Southeastern Conference, not with the strict academic standards that Vanderbilt has. And that's no reflection on anybody. But the fact is Vanderbilt struggles to get enough players to sit out there and compete for 60 minutes in the conference.
All right, let's move on to Arkansas. I know you got them on the demo list. And
man, I'm going to tell you, I had a long talk with our good friend coming over for this weekend, this past weekend after the game on Saturday. And it's complete turmoil in Arkansas right now. Brett Bielema is, I think, a good guy. He's a great salesperson. He has a trouble recruiting his style of offense. He had a great run in Wisconsin when he was in the Big Ten, went to the Rose Bowl 3 times and all that. But the fact is this is a different league. You can't line up 6'10", 400-pound linemen and expect a running back to run 50 or 60 snaps. In this league, it won't work because the SEC will just put 10 up there and stop you. And he's found that out, and he can't recruit enough kids to come there to stay with that style. So I think right now he's 10-24 in the Southeastern Conference after 5 years. Guys, that's not going to cut it. I don't care where you are, any league. If you're going to be competitive, you got to be competitive. Right now, Arkansas is not that. We'll get a chance now. They lose to South Carolina 48-22 this past weekend in Columbia. How about this? They gave up their defense in South Carolina, scored 3 touchdowns, 2 picks and a fumble, a 94-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown. From what I saw, Arkansas didn't even chase him. I mean, it's just kind of a deterioration of the program. Guess where they go this weekend? They go to Tuscaloosa. They play Alabama. Oh, wait a minute. It's Alabama's homecoming. They on national TV.
6:15 start, by the way.
It is a 6:15 start in Tuscaloosa. I hope Coach Bielema and his staff can really make it competitive. I don't know if they can.
You know, I heard a interview that they were talking to the fans in Arkansas. Even the fans are down. They have no confidence in their team. They're not proud of their team. They don't even want to go to the games
They
anymore.
do not. And it's not just with the football program, but it's the whole athletic department.
Right.
It starts with the athletic director. There have been some major decisions over there that just hasn't worked out for them. I look for them. At the rate they're going, I think they're going to have a reorganization of that department by January 1st.
Well, I would certainly hope so, because the fans up in Arkansas that usually put that plastic cap on their head and yell suey, they're not. It's for a different reason.
I will say this in a positive form.
Right.
I've been in that press box. They serve the best pregame meal of any press box in the conference. I'm telling you. The ribs, Jerry. The ribs. We're talking about the big pork ribs. You can pick them up and the bone will fall out and the meat just lays on the plate.
We're going this. Oh, they're not in town. Will they bring them to
No,
Bryant Denny? We'll go.
No, we know too many people in Tuscaloosa. They ain't gonna let them come in the press box.
Talk about Ole Miss while you're tearing
Oh my
up
goodness!
some people.
You know, bless Matt Lou's heart. Not only did they advertise for a new head during the Auburn game, the score was 38-3 or something. Ole Miss post on their website the qualifications for a new football coach
During the game.
During the game, how? That's to me. I'm lost for words that I can say on TV. I'm just frustrated to no end. But Matt's done as good a job as he can do.
Right.
You can't take that team to practice every day. Read all the negative stuff, Jerry, that goes on in the paper and on TV and on Twitter and everywhere else. These kids read it every day. They struggle like crazy the first half. Auburn starts the substitution the second half, and Ole Miss kind of catches up. Now again, Vanderbilt comes to town. They can get a little healthy this weekend if they play. I think they ran up 350, 400 yards. Patterson is a good quarterback,
right?
But he just doesn't have enough people around him. The other side of that is there'll be a total clean out. I understand the athletic director may be leaving already. He's, I think, interviewed for the Nebraska job or whatever. But there's several other things that's happening in that program. In my opinion, once the sanctions come down for NCAA, they're going to have to clean house from top to bottom to make that program whole again, and it's going to take a while.
Well, you say take a while, and that was my next question. Ole Miss is looking for the next few years of being in trouble.
It's bad trouble. Their recruiting class right now is not even on the. I think they're down to 3 commitments because nobody wants to go there. They know they can't. No bowl bid. Their schedule is out of charts as far as the SEC West is concerned, and they don't. And now they're going to have a complete new coaching staff. Nobody knows what's going to happen because we don't know how severe the penalty is going to be. We have a good idea, but we don't know. But even if they're close to what we think they're going to be, you're right. I'm saying 4 to 5 years before they can get back and be competitive.
They still got the best tailgating in the country, though.
Well, even here's what I'm afraid of. Yeah, their motto is we ain't never lost a party, and I can tell you if you go to the Grove, you can see why. But the fact is, we're going to have people by the end of the season, the way the pit is drift that off, or the other side, they may all go to the Grove and never go in the stadium.
That's true. You're not going to give up the party. No. All right, so that's a total overhaul teams. There's 4 teams now on the remodel list, as we like to call it. Needs some help. The first one, Max, will be Kentucky.
Kentucky's 4-1 right now, and I watched that ball game with Missouri the other night. And Missouri's got a legitimate. Yesterday, there was a release from the SEC office saying that the officials did make a mistake at the end. The score was 40-34. Missouri had the ball moving it down the field. First of all, there was a missed spot, and then there was a delay. The clock was running down to about 16 seconds. Really, Missouri had a chance for at least 1 more play and maybe 2, and they were moving the ball. Drew Lock threw the ball over 50 times for over 450 yards against Kentucky. But because of the delay, they didn't get the play off right. Then they tried to throw in the end zone, and Kentucky knocked it down, and Kentucky comes away with a win. But the mistakes made by the officials, I'm not saying could have made a difference, but Missouri's one of those programs that came in with low expectations, and for a while they were lower. I mean, they didn't raise expectations. Now, they played by far their best ball game. Kentucky's not a great football team, but they're a good football team, and they're solid in every way. They need some polishing. I think they'll get a little bit better. They've actually, here's something that few people will say. And I heard Gene Chiswick say it on SEC Now the other night. The fact is, if they play well, they got Mississippi State coming up this week. If they play well, they could go into that Georgia game in 2 weeks at 9-1. Now think about that. Kentucky winning 9 football games in 1 year. If that be the case, there'll be some folks taking.
You know, we've been talking about Kentucky since the season started.
Yeah.
And they were on our list to surprise some people.
Yeah.
So they're proving us right.
They are. They're doing a good job. They, you know, again, not quite enough talent to be competitive in the East right now.
Right.
But look, if they get 9 wins, if they could get 9 wins overall and get a nice bowl game, that's a huge step up for Mark Stoops and his team.
Absolutely. Now, down in Gator Country, Florida.
I think it's a crossroads. I really do believe that Texas A&M comes to town this week. First of all, I didn't know that LSU could win. They won 17-16 in that ball game. But LSU played better than they've played all year long. Florida's playing about the same. Felipe Franks comes back. The running game was adequate. The defense was pretty good. But I think LSU was just more determined. Coach Orgeron said in that ball game that they met on Monday. Team met as a members only of the team. The coaching staff was meeting with the athletic director. They were trying to get everything together. But they had a dedication on Monday night saying, we're going to win this football game. They went to Gainesville to win, and they'll do. I will say this. You let Texas A&M play as they did against Alabama this week, they go to Gainesville, they'll win by 3 touchdowns. Now, I'm not saying they can, because I know that was an emotional high for A&M because they had some things to prove as well.
Right.
But the fact is Jim McElwain they lost 10 guys to some off-field problems, some credit card fraud and all that stuff. Then they've had about 3 injuries to a couple of wide receivers. They just seem to start to deteriorate before your own eyes. I really thought that Florida had backed into the SEC championship game 2 years in a row because of the SEC East being down. I thought maybe that might happen again this year. Georgia's a surprise team. Not to a lot of people, but it is to me.
You're right.
Mainly because I told you about it. I thought the third year, which would be next year for Kirby Smart, would be the year. Guys, he's ratcheted up, and they're playing extremely well right now. So Florida's at a crossroad. They got a new athletic director, Scott Strickland. I got to know very well when he was at Mississippi State. Scott is not one to linger. If the fan base and the program's not moving in the direction, in the positive side, hate to say it, but Jim, you'll be looking for a job.
I look at
buddy.
Florida like I look at Texas. They ought to be able to get the top 22 players every year in that state, and they haven't done it.
Since my background had been in recruiting mostly, and a lot of it at that level, I made the statement a couple of years ago. I could sit in Gainesville, Florida on a telephone, never leave the office and recruit 25 kids in that state that could play for a championship.
Right.
Because they're there. They got 200 plus kids every year that come out of Florida that are championship type kids that can play, particularly from Gainesville South, particularly Broward, Dade, South Florida market.
Right.
Unbelievable in recruiting. I don't know what's happened to them, but there's not enough talent right now, in my opinion, for Florida to win this SEC East this year.
All right, let's move on to LSU. I know you touched on it because they played Florida, but LSU came out to something to prove, and Orgeron and all of his pregame interviews, you could just feel it. It was a little different this week.
He did. I think he's kind of trying to balance the, quote, CEO attitude where he lets the coordinators run it and him have some input as well. We all know his baggage. While he was at Ole Miss, he was 3-25 and all that stuff we know. But, guys, he changed. When he took the interim job at Southern Cal, they won 6 of the last 8. When he took the interim job at LSU, they won 6 of the last 8. So he's capable of putting a staff together. The team just wasn't living up to whether, and they had some key injuries. The key outside linebacker, Key, was hurt, had shoulder separation. He was out for a while. Geis now had an ankle injury. He wasn't playing up to par, but they seemingly are getting those guys back. Now, I think what's more important now than the win itself was this weekend at Florida is what do they do with Auburn coming up this week. That's a 2:30 kick, guys. That's CBS, national televised, Auburn and LSU. So we're going to find out really how good both teams are.
All right, we touched on it and when we came on the air about a coach that might have ended up with a loss this year, this week, but now is off the hot seat. You think that happened with Texas A&M?
I think that's Kevin Sumlin, and I think for the period of information I got yesterday was that he's been offered a new extension on his contract. And guys, he was dead in the water. I mean, know too many folks in and around this league that he was dead in the water. But his team has stepped up. We saw what he did with Alabama. John Chavis did a remarkable job defending Jalen Hurts, keeping him in the pocket, making him throw the ball. I think it was 13 out of 28 or something. I don't recall those exact numbers, but they manifested on this defensive side to slow Alabama down, and they did that, and they were able. And I've talked about Christian Kirk before, their wide receiver return guy. He's as good as he is in the country. And I know there was some controversy on the last pass he threw in the end zone where his knee went down. But I believe if you analyze that, because the first thing I said, why didn't they look at that? Why didn't they review that? But on further review, his left foot was already inbound before his knee went down.
Right.
And that was what the call was. So hats off to them. But I like what Coach Sumlin and his staff has done. They, like Florida, have no reason why they couldn't be a contender in the West every year.
That's right.
In the state of Texas, oh my goodness.
The talent pool is there for sure.
Absolutely. And the money on top of that.
That's right.
You remember they did a $400 million expansion? You know how long it took them to raise the money for that? 3 weeks. Never left the state and just called and said, hey, I need a $100 million contribution. They got it.
All right, we're going to move on. What teams need just a little bit of touch-up? We'll get Max's opinion when we come back on Game Day TV.
Central State Bank is your hometown bank with signature personal service at 5 convenient locations in Shelby County. For more than 100 years, we've been large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. Come by and see us and visit us online at centralstatebank.com.
Home. It's where you take your time. Build the future. Make your memories. Celebrate. Come home. Alpha Insurance.
Sundown 10 is the only company in Central Alabama authorized to sell Autobond's Hooper Optics nanotechnology window tint film. We are the best because we sell the best. With Hooper Optic, you get the first patented nano ceramic window film with 3 times more infrared rejection. It's 25 times more durable than competing films and 13 degrees cooler. This cutting-edge technology provides remarkable performance and cool European styling, and you can only get it at Sundown 10 in Hoover. For the best window film installed by the best team, Sundown is the place to go.
You can travel all over and you won't find another town with our name or our frame of mind. So much to do, so much to see. It comes down to this, it's easy to see. There's just one in the world, positively. Tuscaloosa, the one and only.
Welcome back into Game Day TV, everyone. Max Howell's been breaking down the SEC. We've talked about teams that need demolition, and we talked about teams that need some work. Now just a little bit of polishing maybe, Max. We start with Missouri. They had a better game this week.
They did, and the reason people say, well, why aren't they on the demolition list? Well, every other week they've been, Jerry. But
Right.
I think they've come the furthest. They did. I thought they played just a really good ball game this past week. I think they had a chance to win the game at the end against Kentucky, but they didn't quite get there. But improvement. Drew Lock threw over 50 times, over 400 yards. He was putting it, and he came in the league in the season at the top of the league as far as pass completion was concerned. And nobody gave him a lot of credit, mainly because they didn't have a good support staff. But I really think Barry Odom did a good job. He definitely, I think, still on the hot seat. I think there'll be probably some changes there if they don't continue to play at that level. But you go back and look at how far they've come. I had to say, hey, you've come this far. Let's take what you've done, polish it a little bit. Now here's the bad thing. You know where they go this weekend? To Athens.
Yeah.
They got to play Georgia, and Georgia's defense, I think, will probably shut that offense down for Missouri.
All right, we've been critical. You and I have for years about Will Muschamp. Now you got South Carolina on only the touch-up section.
Well, they get beat the week before. Excuse me. They come back from behind. I thought they were beat against A&M. They come
Right.
back from behind and win that one at the end. Then they go home. But you know what? They had a chance to get well because Arkansas comes to town.
Right.
and they took full advantage of it. They ended up beating Arkansas, 48-22, I believe, in that scoreboard. They ran up and down the field all day long. Something that may have slipped by some people is The defense scored 3 touchdowns against Arkansas, 2 interceptions for a touchdown, and then picked up a fumble and ran it 90 yards or whatever. And really brought it all together. The fan base, my daughter, I said before, my daughter and her husband are season ticket holders. They tailgate at every ball game, and she keeps a finger on the pulse of what the fan base is like. And she said definitely it has turned. It is. Now, we'll get a chance to, to see if they can continue on coming up this week. But right now, they got a chance. They play Tennessee this week. So now we'll find out if they can do what it looks like they're going to do. Where's Tennessee? Where's the hat?
I know. I was going to say the only reason the hat wasn't on when you said that word is because they were off this week.
They were off this week. You're right, but they're getting ready to do it. So that's another program is going to have some problems before it's over.
Right.
But anyway, South Carolina, I'm really pleased for Will Muschamp. You remember his forte on the football field is defense, and that's where they're starting to emerge right now. Really, they lost when they lost Deebo Samuels. He was a guy that the first 3 games he had 3 touchdowns on kickoff and punt returns. So he's a hoss for them. They've lost him to injury, but they've made up for it. The Bentley kid, Jake Bentley, the quarterback, you know where he's from. He's from Opelika, Alabama.
Right.
So they came into Alabama to get him a quarterback, and they've done well. He's continued to improve. I think South Carolina's going to probably end up in the top 3, probably 3 teams in the SEC East this year.
All right, we're going to great condition. Let's just leave them alone, let them go. Where you want to start with Alabama?
I got to. I mean, here's the thing and everybody, and the funniest thing we heard is talk about, no, I didn't bring my rat poison this morning, but I understand what Coach Saban does. He is the absolute best, and I've been in this business 50 years. He is the best I've ever seen or heard at working the media for his benefit and for his team's benefit. All that stuff that you read, and I know the thing that went viral from yesterday's press conference was, the rat poison. All you media, all you guys, you poisoning the minds. And what he's talking about is they write and tell. I understand it from both sides. That's the thing. They are playing well. They did beat people badly.
Right.
And because they didn't make any mistakes. And of course, Coach Saban, when they didn't play this well this past weekend at A&M, he said it's the media's fault.
Right.
But what he was doing was sending a message to the players.
That's right.
Guys, you better listen to him. The guy, I know he's got a degree. He may have he's got a PhD in people. I can absolutely guarantee you. And he's done a great job there. So you can't take it away. I think they'll bounce back. They got homecoming this week.
Yeah.
Arkansas comes to town.
Well,
that's all I'm
the
gonna
funny
say.
thing to me is that when Nick Saban does that, some of the media think that he's getting on to them. They can't figure out what he's doing. He's so far ahead of them, it's pitiful.
He is, and they respond to it,
I
and he
know.
laughs.
And then it goes viral and it gets double what it intended to do.
It absolutely does. So, he does, hats off to him. The program is as solid as anybody in the country. And if you look at the scores week in and week out, Clemson got by Wake Forest 28-14.
Right.
Ohio State the week before had gotten beaten. Michigan gets beat Oklahoma gets beat this week. Guys, I'm going to tell you, Alabama's going to be there, and I got a chance. I'm going to take a chance right now and say I think they win it all this year. I really do.
Too. All right, move to Auburn real quick. Auburn up 30-something. I mean, they had the game won, kind of took their foot off the pedal, but Auburn is playing good ball.
They are, and you and I talked a little bit about that, and that was the first thing that popped in my mind the second half with Auburn. Is the fact is you up 38, and you could put probably 2 more up real quick, and they put up a field goal. It was 41. They didn't really. They played a lot of young kids. I understand that. They knew they could beat Ole Miss, and they did. Now here's the next question: with LSU stepping up the rate that they are, can they go to Baton Rouge, and at 2:30 in the afternoon, which everybody knows that's the national game of the week, and do it again? That's where we're going to measure and see how good that program at Auburn's coming along.
Well, as long as they do what they've been doing, they should be okay against LSU, but we'll see how it goes.
Chip Lindsey's definitely made a
I'm
positive.
glad you brought that up.
He's made a positive input on that coaching staff. I think because of Chip Lindsey. Put him in. Coach Malzahn put him in there. Coach Malzahn literally now we know has stepped away from the play calling. I truly don't believe he did the first couple of weeks.
Right.
He still had his clipboard. He was running up down the sideline doing it. I understand all of that, I think. But the fact now he's gone away from it. He's become the CEO. He listens to what's being called, and obviously he's agreeing with it. So hats off to Chip Lindsey in that offense.
All right, Georgia, let's leave them alone again this week, right?
No doubt about that. They played, they played Vanderbilt this past weekend. 423 yards, 45-14. We can just go into all the stats we want to. Georgia's playing extremely well. Again, better than I thought they could the second year. They made some atrocious mistakes, but all coaches do in the first year.
Right.
He corrected those. The defense is playing well. No doubt they're going to win the East now. And somebody asked me, I did the radio show this morning. Somebody asked me, said, well, can Georgia beat Alabama? I didn't even hesitate. No, I don't think they can. Not yet. They're not there yet. So I look for that to be a pretty interesting ball game, though, Georgia and Alabama for the SEC championship.
All right, big games coming up in the SEC. We'll start with Auburn at LSU. We've already leaned toward that, but the question is, Max, you're right. Can Auburn maintain? Yeah. Can they go to Baton Rouge? Can they win in that stadium?
I think not only is it the pressure is on Auburn to do that, but it's more pressure, Jerry, on Orgeron and his staff. Coach Orgeron is a local guy. We know all this stuff. They were in turmoil after Troy beat them 2 weeks ago. They were in just total chaos down there. Fans were calling, the radio shows were beating them up, the newspapers, and you got to give it to Coach O and his staff. They pulled back. They had their meeting. The players had their only meeting.
Right.
The staff had their meeting with the athletic director on top of that, and they said, hey, guys, something's got to change. And it did, and they were up. Now, can it change? It's going to have to change that much more. Now, are they on the way? They get some guys back healthy. I looked out there one time against Florida. Out of 5 offensive linemen, there were 3 18-year-old freshmen playing. Now, rightly so. All of them were 6'4" and 320 pounds, but they're still freshmen. That's still one day out of high school, basically. So can they take that and block Auburn's defensive front and move the football? Can Geis run the football effective? Can Epplin play action, get the ball out to the wide receivers, and can they play good defense and stop Auburn's run? Those are all the questions that's got to be answered. I'd hate this morning to say I think Auburn will be favored in that ball game,
right?
But I'd hate to know right now that I had to make a living talking to those folks in Vegas about it.
Well, I think Auburn's defense too. I think LSU happened to run into Florida when the defense was a little bit down, let them get the 17
That's
points,
true.
and then the only difference was a missed extra point
Absolutely.
in that game. But if Auburn's defense shows up, I think it's going to cause havoc in the backfield for LSU.
I think that I agree. The difference is Eplin's not going to hurt you running.
Right.
He can throw the ball, but if you put the pressure on him, that they're going to have to run the football. Auburn's best at stopping the run. They'll crowd the line of scrimmage. I think Auburn probably wins it, but they'll have to play well because I'm telling you, Baton Rouge, day or night, is a tough place to go.
The weather is forecast to be perfect this Saturday in Tuscaloosa for homecoming.
Yeah. At night.
Bama welcomed in
Arkansas.
And I'm not sure how welcome Arkansas is going to feel.
Well, not at all. I mean, look, that talk has already started, Jerry. I mean, it's rampant in Arkansas right now about having to go to Tuscaloosa. The worst thing that could have happened to Arkansas is Alabama not playing well this past week. Because I can promise you, I understand the 20-hour work week. I'm opposed. Everybody's ever heard me talk. I'm opposed to that. But the teams today have figured out a way to get the most out of those kids in 17 hours of practice before they play the game on Saturday. Alabama is the exception. They get more than the best out. And the difference is because they've got so much talent. Alabama, I think the line is 32 or something like that. I think Alabama covers it. I'll be honest with you.
All right, down the way, Texas A&M got to get on an airplane now. They got to fly into the swamp.
They do.
Going to be an interesting game. We've discussed it. It might be the best ball game in the SEC.
It could very well be. I think that and the South Carolina, Tennessee are probably the best games as far as games are concerned. But let's talk about that one. I think two teams at crossroads, and I believe A&M's already shown. Now they've really wetted the whistle for the fan base in College Station. They got a chance to go. If they play like they did against Alabama, they'll beat Florida by 3 touchdowns. Now, where they can maintain that or not, they haven't done it yet. That's the challenge that A&M's got. The other side of that is Jim McElwain has got to do something about that football team. I don't know how they're going to do it. The Mon kid, the freshman quarterback at A&M, I don't believe Florida's got enough players to chase him down. I mean, they could play 15 on that side over there instead of 11, and I think they still have a tough time. Alabama couldn't catch him all night long. Right. They couldn't catch him. So I think therein lies where the problem is. I think Florida will have to redirect their defense. Randy Shannon is a defensive coordinator, used to be the head coach at Miami, so he's accustomed to seeing that style of play, but I don't know where he's got enough talent on the defensive side to contain Munn and let him roll around. And they ain't got a defensive back then that can cover Christian Kirk. I mean, he's the best, I think, in the country right now.
Another setting up for a good ball game. Vandy travels to Ole Miss.
Right.
One of those two teams, you keep expecting Ole Miss. This might be the game that they come off and get well.
Ole Miss has got more talent.
I think so,
I don't
too.
think there's any doubt about that. But have they been beaten down so much, Jerry, that they just can't quite? Ole Miss is a team because of all the problems, and I don't want to get into the sympathy, empathy kind of feeling for them, but they created a lot of that themselves.
Right.
Now, okay, that's done. That's history. Play your game, but that is hard. That's easy for us to say. We're not at practice every day. We don't go show up for the ball game. Ole Miss has got more talent. They should win that ball game. They should be healthier mentally and physically when they come out of that ball game. The question is, can they do it?
Tennessee had a week off.
Yeah.
I saw a thing on Facebook. It said Tennessee, and it says these colors don't run. The problem is they don't pass, they don't catch, and they don't tackle either. So South Carolina coming into Tennessee. South Carolina, you got them on a little higher note.
Exactly right.
Where we go from there?
I'm telling you what, you let Will Muschamp take that bunch into Knoxville and win. I don't know where Butch Jones gets out or not. I mean, really, it's that much turmoil at Tennessee right now. Here's the thing that Coach Jones has got going against him right now. Not only his team's not performing on the field, but he's got a new athletic director and a new president that neither one hired him. He's been there 5 years. He's had 3 nationally ranked recruiting classes, and you've not seen any improvement in that team. They didn't win the East last year, and they had 19 seniors on that team, of which one of them, Joshua Dobbs, is playing in the NFL as a quarterback.
Right.
So that last year was their year. It escaped them. They didn't get by. So now can he regroup this? Definitely. They got to beat South Carolina if Coach Jones plans on staying at Tennessee, in my opinion.
All right, we'll take a break. We're going to come back and do a little high school report. I'll give you some scores and some recruiting information and some quick tips as well on what's going on around the state of Alabama in high school ball. We'll get back to more SEC after the high school segment. You stay tuned. We'll be back with more right here on Game Day TV.
How do you show love? With the big things? The little things? The tough things? Your everything. Show them you care. Alpha Insurance.
Sundown 10 is the only company in Central Alabama authorized to sell Autobond's Hooper Optics nanotechnology window tint film. We are the best because we sell the best. With Hooper Optic, you get the first patented nano ceramic window film with 3 times more infrared rejection. It's 25 times more durable than competing films and 13 degrees cooler. This cutting-edge technology provides remarkable performance and cool European styling, and you can only get it at Sundown 10 in Hoover. For the best window film installed by the best team, Sundown is the place to go.
You can travel all over and you won't find another town with our name or our frame of mind. So much to do, so much to see. It comes down to this, it's easy to see. There's just one in the world, positively. Tuscaloosa, the one and only.
Welcome back into Game Day TV, everyone. Well, we're going to talk about a little high school, Max. Let's just tell everybody, first of all, where we went this week. You and I ended up in Vernon, Alabama.
Well, it was a short trip for me, but it took you a little while to get there from Birmingham.
You can't get there. If you look at a map from Vernon to Birmingham, there is no road. There's no road.
Jerry spent all afternoon trying to get there, but that wasn't half of it. Jerry, we did a little pregame show, and I was going to be on the air, so Jerry was going to come on back to Birmingham. Jerry leaves after the pregame show, and I stay the whole ball game, basically, and I take down the equipment, load it in the truck, get back in the car, and I pick up the phone and call Jerry. He was just walking in his house after that. Another 2.5 hour drive.
I'm telling you. Well, you can't get there from here, and I'm telling you, but the folks in Vernon were very gracious to us. The Red Bay folks were great. Jack Ivey, he gets burned every now and then with a flame about that high, but that's all right. but he did a good job, and it was fun to be out in Vernon. Let's move on to 5A. Here's your top 10 in 5A, and here's what happened. Demopolis comes in this week at number 10. They play at Sumter Central this week, so they'll get another win, but they absolutely jumped all over Dallas County, 59-6. Number 9, Jackson, they lost to St. Paul's, 17-6. They go to Viger. They should win at Viger. May Jemison out of Huntsville, they beat Lee of Huntsville in a big win. They play Lee of Huntsville. They beat Brooks in a big win, 29-26. Etowah beat Arab 51-15. Alexandria won over Scottsboro 32-7. Winona keeps rolling. They beat Pleasant Grove 21-15. Beauregard, another win for them. They knocked off Valley 45-0. Next week game should be interesting as they will be at home against Central of Clay County. Carroll, another big win against Rehoboth, 24-8. St. Paul's, as I mentioned, beat Jackson. What a great ball game, 17-6. They go to Citronelle. St. Paul's should continue their winning ways. And Briarwood Christian with another big win. They ran up the score 31-6 against St. Clair County. They play George Bates and Woodlawn next week. So there is your 5A. Moving on to 6A now, the top 10 of the week. Benjamin Russell comes in at number 10. They beat Chilton County 34-0. Sidney Lanier beat beat Dothan 42-0. Ramsey lost to Jackson Olin in a slugfest over there. Hard defensive game, 14-8. The key there is Ramsey now goes to Homewood. Homewood is playing good ball, folks. They're in at number 6 right there, as you can see. That's going to be another good game. But at number 7, Saraland, they beat Gulf Shores 41-3. As I mentioned, Homewood coming off a big win against their rival right up the street from them there, John Carroll. They beat them 45-7. Spanish Fort beat Blunt 52-49. And in that game, Max, I did a little research on that game. Blunt was down by some 30-something points. Came all the way back to tie it, but then a field goal at the end, and Spanish Fort ends up with the win over Blunt. But a good ball game all the way around. Quite possibly the best game in the state. Wetumpka, Smoking Company continue to roll. They ran all over Pelham 55-12. They play Helena this week at home. Look for them to continue to roll. Quarterback Bo Nix is still out with an injury at Pinson Valley, but they didn't play, so that's another good week of rest for them. They go to Center Point this next week. They should win there easily. Oxford won at Southside 42-0. They travel up to Fort Payne, and the number 1 team in the state in 6A. Austin, they beat Florence 28-12, and I know I'm on a radio show up in Florence. Florence did a good job of staying with them 28-12. Austin goes and plays at Hartsville next week. That game will be live on the NFHS network, so you can watch that game live if you are a subscriber to them. Now on to 7A. Just can't say enough about 7A. Max, Bob Jones comes in. They lose at number 10. They lose to Hewitt-Trussville 52-18. But who isn't losing to Hewitt-Trussville by about that score? That's going to be a great ball game as they'll go play Gadsden City this coming Friday night. Mountain Brook with a win over Tuscaloosa County 31-7. They play Vestavia. Big rivalry between Vestavia and Mountain Brook as well. Spain Park, they get a big win over Huffman 35-26. And Huffman, in Spain Park stays at home. They welcome in Thompson. We're going to talk a little bit more about Thompson. Can you imagine how big a game that's going to be? Fairhope beats Baker 30-14. Auburn was off this week. They travel to play Lee Montgomery. I think a whole lot closer game than everybody's giving Lee Montgomery credit for. They got some fantastic athletes. They get Auburn at home. So, Auburn plays at home against Lee Montgomery. So that's going to be a huge ball game in 7A. Then we get to the top 5. I tweeted out these top 5 teams can all lay claim to being the number 1 team in the state. McGill-Tulane beat Bryant 55-7. Hewitt-Trussville runs all over Bob Jones, as I mentioned, 52-18. Thompson kills Vestavia 49-14. Hoover beat Oak Mountain 59-7, despite taking their foot off the pedal way into that ball game. And Central of Phoenix City, Jamie Dubose and company gets a big win over Enterprise 55-7. Those scores, Max, in those top 5 teams just incredible.
It really is. You know, you go back and look, and I think the average is about 52 or 3 points in between those five. You score 50 in high school, there's no reason why you ever should get beat.
Absolutely none. And these four teams, you don't know, they all got great quarterbacks, man.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Well, that's everywhere. Yeah, I mean, really, if
That's
you're
right.
going to win big, that's where you have to start.
That's right.
And certainly these teams you're talking about, all of them, we're very familiar with those guys.
That's right.
They'll be playing on Saturday very soon.
Well, speaking of Saturdays, and you're right, playing on Saturdays, I got my schedule for the NFHS Network, so let me just tell you, if you keep up with high school sports, November the 1st and 2nd, I'll be calling the state volleyball championships at the Crossplex in Birmingham. On November 10th, 17th, 24th, and December 1st, we'll be calling some playoff football. You want to stay tuned for that. We'll be telling you what games I'll be covering. December 2nd, I get to go down to the Aquatic Center at Auburn and call the state swimming finals. And then, of course, the Super 7 will be at 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th at Bryant-Denny. And our show the week before the Super 7, we're going to have Don Staley in as our guest. We're going to move over to our other set over there. We're going to be all comfortable, and we're going to invite Don Staley to come sit with us, who is the president of the Tuscaloosa Sport and Tourism Board, so it's going to be good to have him. So let's talk about some quick notes now. I'd like to bring you a little information from what's going on around the state in high school ball. We mentioned we traveled to Vernon.
Yes.
Big crowd there at Vernon. I talked to the band. I got to set out on the field. I went up to the coin toss, and I want to tell you something that I found was interesting. Everybody always wonders what that official may be saying in the coin toss. All right, so I stand right behind him, and he looks at the four captains on the left and the four captains on the right, and he calls their numbers, whatever they were. 7, 12, 42, and 68. I'm going to ask you a question. Can you control those players over on the other side of the field? Al said, yes, sir. He looks over to the other side and he says, calls their number. Can you control your players on your side of the field? Yes, sir. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, if you can't, I can, and you're not going to like it if I do it. So they got the message. I thought it was a pretty good intro.
I never heard it that way.
Right. So if he controls getting them in order, you're right. They don't want it. But anyway, we had a good time in Vernon. Big game over there. That was a Region 2, a 2A Region 8 matchup. Red Bay needed that win. They couldn't get it. Vernon, or Lamar County, keeps on rolling. LSU commit Tay Provins returned to play this week after an ankle injury. He had been out for a few weeks. What does he do when he comes back? He scores 5 TDs, runs for 74-yard TD, a 2-yard TD, and a 12-yard TD, and then he just adds 2 more receiving, one of 69 and one of 71 yards. He plays for Madison County. He's a good one. And LSU, he's committed to LSU. Mobile Christian's Andre Fox, he's a defensive end. Plays for them. He visited Auburn this weekend. I'm told he really liked his visit. Of course, that was a good ball game to visit. Sure. So we'll see where that young man ends up as well. Blount, I mentioned this. Blount comes from being down 30 points, folks. 42-14 was the score, okay? They start coming back. They tied the game all the way up till it was 49-all, and then they lose it 52-49 in a great ball game to St. Paul's down there. So congratulations to Blount. Recruiting, I want to mention Paul Tyson. We all know who he's, the great grandson of Coach Bear Bryant. He plays quarterback at Hewitt-Trussville. He threw 5 TD passes, Max, and he ran for another one for a total of 6 touchdowns. Hewitt-Trussville ran 55 plays in the first half.
Wow. Would you say that was a speed-up game?
I would say, man, they got the quick snap down pat, just like they want to have it. And Tallulah Tagovailoa threw for 318 yards again for Thompson, 2 passes, 4 TDs total. Just a great win for Thompson.
Well, his brother didn't get a chance to play Saturday.
That's right.
Because the game was really close, and Jalen Hurts obviously kept Alabama in the game there, and Coach Saban just saw fit not to sub very much, and rightly so. I mean, they were fighting for their life out there.
Well, we're going to start talking about a little recruiting news, getting a little more in there as we're getting closer to the end of the season. One quarterback I hadn't mentioned is Jack West. He plays down in Saraland. He's a senior. He's been committed to Stanford the whole season, and he hasn't changed. He went he's completed 83 of 129 passes. He's 64.3% accuracy for 1,073 yards, 12 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. So Stanford's going to get a good player there as well. Four-star recruit Collis Miller is a defensive tackle out of Jackson Olin. He's a senior. Recorded 16 tackles, 1 sack, 5 quarterback pressures, 1 pass breakup, a blocked extra point, and offensively they stuck him in there. He just carries the ball 4 times. Carries the ball 8 times, 4 of them for touchdowns. So when they need a touchdown, they just go to him.
All I know, if I'm an offensive tackle playing against him, I hold him every snap.
You're not kidding.
They're going to be throwing the flag at me.
Get the penalty. Hey, Auburn commit Cedric Jackson. We all know he's the nephew of Bo Jackson, who we saw on TV this week. Did you see him helping the referee?
Unbelievable.
I'm telling you, what a great shot of that. But he got 18 grabs for 419 yards already. He's averaging 23 yards per reception and got 3 touchdowns as well. Seth Williams, the wide receiver at Paul Bryant down in Tuscaloosa, he's a 4-star recruit. He is not committed yet. He recorded a pair of 200-yard games already, one against Minor, one against Central Tuscaloosa, and he had a 3-touchdown game against Selma and a kickoff return for a score against McAdoo. So we'll keep our eye on Seth Williams as well. One more I want to tell you about, only because of where he's committed. James Foster, the quarterback at Sidney Lanier, committed to Missouri.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So Missouri's down here getting a quarterback. He's done damage with his arms and his legs. He's a running, throwing quarterback. Foster has completed 103 of 153 passes, which is 68%. He's thrown for 1,475 yards and 17 touchdowns. And he's also, while he's done that, he's ran for 284 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's got Sidney Lanier 6-0 this year.
Yeah. The
Poets, for the first time in a long, long time, they're 6-0. Matter of fact, I think around the year 2000, 1999, the last time. So they're good there as well. Bo Nix didn't play. I just mentioned him. He's coming off ankle injury, but they had an off week, so we'll keep up with him as well. So that's your high school report. I ran through it pretty fast. Hope you enjoyed the scores, and we'll talk about more recruiting. So we'll take a break. We're going to come back, let Max wind up his SEC report right here on Game Day TV.
Sundown 10 is the only company in Central Alabama authorized to sell Autobond Super Optics nanotechnology window tint film. We are the best because we sell the best. With Hooper Optic, you get the first patented nano ceramic window film with 3 times more infrared rejection. It's 25 times more durable than competing films and 13 degrees cooler. This cutting-edge technology provides remarkable performance and cool European styling, and you can only get it at Sundown 10 in Hoover. For the best window film installed by the best team, Sundown is the place to go.
Welcome back to Game Day TV. By the way, Kim Shera under the weather this morning, literally, and she's not going to be able to do our weather report today as we're doing this segment, so we'll hope she gets well soon. We'll see you next week, but you can find the weather out where it's going to be. It's supposed to be beautiful weather.
Well, it is. Nate's going, blown out of here. She'll leave it dry and cool, I hope.
Yeah, and I talked, Max, before we finish up this, I want to tell you about the Wilson ratings that I meant to in the high school report. I'm going to kind of start breaking that down. To give you an idea, in the Wilson report, in 1A, instead of Central Phoenix City being number 1, they've got Hoover 1 and Central Phoenix City 2. But I made the argument, the top 5, you could put them anywhere. They've got Hewitt-Trussville number 3, McGill-Tulane number 4, and Thompson in 5th. Now, whether or not I agree with that or not, I still think you can shake those 5 teams up.
Well, probably they use the opponent, the strength
of
the opponent.
It has the strength of schedule.
That is important.
Right.
It really
it's
is.
more of a computer-based rating system than the Alabama Sports Writers Association. But one thing's for sure, those 5 teams in 7A all in there. You can shake them up in the Yahtzee thing and throw them out. They all going to come in there. Number 1. Okay, let's go back and talk about Missouri at Georgia coming up this week, Max.
Well, again, I thought we had Missouri on the upswing. They've a much improved football team. Drew Lock will have his work cut out for him, because the strength of the Georgia team, contrary to a lot of people's belief, is not Nick Chubb and the Michelle kid, the 2 running backs. It's the offensive line is getting better, but guys, they win games on defense, and that's what's happening. That's what will take to slow down Drew Lock and the Missouri Tigers. They do play in Athens. That's a plus for them right there. So I like Georgia in that one, and probably put Missouri take a step back for this week.
First game of the season, you and I watched BYU together, I think.
Yeah, we did.
All right, we kind of got a feel of what the season was kicking off. Now, all of a sudden, look at here. They're coming in to Mississippi State, BYU playing good. What's
Well,
your
they are. They
thoughts?
were 9-4 last year. I don't think they're nearly as good. Mississippi State had a week off this past week. Remember, they got thumped down at Auburn the week before, so they had some things they had to work on. Mississippi State's not a bad football team. I mean, after all, they beat LSU by 4 touchdowns that opening ball game. At that time, LSU wasn't ready to play. Let's put it that way. But Mississippi State's they're a solid 6, 7, 8 win team, and I think that's where I like them in the game. If they were playing out in Utah, I'd say I don't know whether they go out there and win or not. I think they win in Starkville. I like Mississippi State in winning that one.
All right, let's go back to the big games locally here in Alabama. Let's break down a little bit more Auburn at LSU. We talked about they've got to play their game.
Yeah.
Always on the road's a little bit difficult.
It is, and Baton Rouge is worse.
That's right.
It don't matter whether you play afternoon or night down there. That is a tough place to play. 110,000 in the stadium, and I'm telling you, you can't hear yourself. They measure on the Richter scale.
Right.
The noise is so loud down there. But the fact is, it's a national televised game. Auburn knows they've got to continue. More so, LSU knows that they've got to improve and keep improving week in and week out if they're going to keep the fan base satisfied. So I look for that one to be close. I think Auburn will be a favorite in that one, but probably 3 to 6 points, maybe at the most. I think it's going to be a great football game.
If Auburn wins against LSU 3 to 6 points,
Yeah.
still Ogeron is they look at him like they're happy with him, or are the LSU fan base expecting it?
Well, they expect him to win, but they do understand that there's been some change in philosophy and all. I think they tolerate him is what I do. I think no matter, I'm going to tell you, and let's be real, the only thing that LSU's really interested in is beating Alabama. I hate to say that, but
Right.
that's it. They'd rather beat Alabama. That's their major, rival now. So I like that one. I like them. I like Auburn to win that one. I think the noise will keep bubbling up at LSU if LSU loses, but I think they tolerate Coach O the rest of the year.
A week ago, we were talking about Troy goes in, beats LSU. Auburn and Alabama both won against SEC opponents. First time we could find in history that 3 Alabama schools had beat 3 SEC schools. Do you think LSU uses that now to say,
No doubt.
I know we want to beat Alabama, but we're going to show that we can beat the rest of the state of Alabama,
I
starting
think
with
they
Auburn?
have to do that. I really do. Yeah, that's a good lead. Just 1 point. Troy plays Wednesday night this week. They're 4-1 right now, guys. They play South Alabama, which is 3-2. Should be an outstanding ball game. You can get it on ESPN2 coming up this week in Troy at 7:00. So really, Neil Brown's got that team rolling. I'm going to tell you, they're a good football team.
And Joey Jones down at South Alabama, he'll have that team ready to play.
They bring in 26 busloads of fans, players, and coaches and band. That is a load coming to Troy, Alabama.
That's like 7A school in Alabama showing up.
We know how that works.
All right, let's talk about Alabama now. We touched on it. It's Alabama's homecoming. They're going to bring Arkansas in. You know they're going to be up for this ball game.
They got to. They did not play well last week. They win, they go to Texas A&M and win. But they didn't play well. Now, here, let's look at the other side. Arkansas went to South Carolina and got beat. And I'm not talking about squeak loss. They got beat by 48-22 or something. I mean,
Right.
It was awful. So both teams got something to prove. However, homecoming, here's a different 6:15 at night in Tuscaloosa. Guys, Arkansas just pray when you get off the bus. That's all I say.
And everybody's tailgating until 6:15.
They are, buddy. That's going to be a tough road. Alabama wins that one, I think, hands down.
All right, Max. All right, so it's time to talk about some food. And by the way, next week, just want to tell you again, we'll have another segment with Marty Staples, our game day chef. We'll have him on next week. He's going to be bringing you some more tips, and I'll be posting recipes on our Facebook page, which, by the way, is Ask Game Day TV on Facebook. We'd love it if you'd go there and like our Facebook page. You can watch the show from there. Get recipes, whatever we put up. High school every Friday night. Max and I put a video up this week that's just gone crazy from burning, so we appreciate that. But make sure you look for us on Facebook at Ask Game Day TV. Now, Max, the question that everybody wants to know, what's for supper?
I'm going to tell you, what are your favorites? I do the big butterfly pork chops. You know what those are. That's about an inch, almost an inch thick. And that's a white meat, and what I like to do is baste that, marinate it and baste it in a kind of an oil. I use Italian dressing because it's got an oil and an herb base that you can keep that moist. Cook them through and through, but yet it keeps the white meat moist. On the side, I do a mustard coleslaw. We've not done that before. That gives you not only a little different color, and I also chip up some red peppers in it so that red and yellow jumps out at you. Absolutely delicious. I do a green bean casserole with that, with mushroom and mushroom soup in it. Take that right out of the oven. I do garlic breadsticks. with this. Not the garlic bread I love to do in the fryer. I kind of spray it. I heavy load them on the as far as the garlic's concerned. I do a 3-layer German chocolate cake for dessert, and you know chocolate German cake. You know, I layer the chocolate cake, I layer in between, and I cover it now with a sugar white icing.
I can cut him off anytime y'all get too
and
hungry.
sprinkle my pecans on top. I wash all that down with a big old pitcher of sweet iced tea.
What a great edition of Game Day TV. Thanks for watching, everyone. Next week, it gets even tighter. We'll start talking about brackets in high school, playoff implications, a lot going on. Thanks, everyone. For Max Howell, I'm Jerry Young. We'll see you next week right here on Game Day TV.